This segment brought to you by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
We're back, and Angie Taves is with Debbie Lyons-Blythe, the Kansas rancher, talking about sustainability.
I'm talking with Debbie Lyons-Blythe. She's a rancher with Blythe Farms and also on the US Roundtable for beef. And we are talking today about sustainability and what does that mean from a producer's point of view?
Yeah, so sustainability, I think everybody has their own definition, right? Sustainability to me is similar to the definition that the US Roundtable for Sustainable Beef has come up with, but I'm going to put it in my own words. So it's take care of the land, take care of the animals, take care of the people, and make money. Because if you're not a viable business, you won't have money to put back into the conservation measures. The round table is a true round table. It's made up of all the different segments in the beef industry. So the bulk of the members are cattle producers and cattle producer member organizations. And then we've got feed yard owners, we've got auction markets, we've got packers, processors, and retail owners, so quite a few big name retailers. And I will tell you the most eye-opening thing, I went there expecting that I was going to be teaching them a lot about what we're already doing, and I have been able to do that. But the thing that was eye-opening for me is I realized the pressures that they are facing. So for example, a consumer doesn't walk into a fast food restaurant and say, I want the sustainable hamburger, right? But they are in their annual meetings and they're facing shareholder pressures and stakeholders saying we need to be more sustainable. We need to be, cutting back on packaging, cutting back on food waste. We need to prove that the products that we're serving is sustainable. Well, we can't ignore that. We've got to be able to have the data to back up the claims that we're making. I think that's really important. So we have identified 6 key indicators that is on our first go around of things that we're going to measure, and those are things like water, land resources, employee safety, economic viability, some of those real key things. And I think consumers get that. They do care about those things. A lot of people are really critical of millennials, and I'm not. Millennials care about the same thing that farmers and ranchers care about. They vote with their dollars. They tell us what matters to them. And if you've got a good story and good information behind your product, they like that. So if we can provide that information around beef, I think they'll embrace it. I think they'll really appreciate that beef is highly sustainable.
Now, I think you talk about the fact that it needs to be sustainable across the board. How do we do that? Because from your farm to somebody else's farm is not the same.
Right. So our measures have to be very general to start with and then regionally specific in different ways. So when you ask, one of the biggest questions that we ask is, do you have a grazing management plan? Well, your grazing management plan is totally different in the Flint Hills of Kansas, even to western Kansas. But then you start talking about, let's say, in the desert or in the southeast of the United States. It's very, very different, and they don't call it a grazing management plan. But it's really just, how do you keep your cows fed, right? How do you keep your cows fed? And if you have that written down, that serves a lot of purposes. It makes you really think about it more, but it also helps you pass that on to the next generation. One of the ways when we talked about a grazing management plan and do we have it, I was able to say yes because my son is trying to take over the ranch. And we are very supportive, but he doesn't know everything we know. And so our goal is to be able to have things written down so that he can go back and look at it and say, why did we do that this year? And he can then look ahead and try to make some decisions for the future. So a grazing management plan is a great way to be very general in the total overview. Do you have one? And here's the key things that should be included in one, but not so regionally and geographically specific that people can adapt it to the way they want to do it. And remember, this is all voluntary. There is no mandatory. Part of the goal with the roundtable is that we are actually keeping the government from placing measures on us. We are showing them that we are doing a great job. So we don't want any more arbitrary regulatory measures put on us. So we're doing the work to show that we're already working hard on it. So right now, if you are interested in looking into what is sustainability in the beef value chain, and would you be interested in taking a couple of quizzes to see whether you or your operation would meet the measures that we have created for sustainability, you can go to a website. It's beefsustainability.us. There are a couple of places that you can click on. First of all, everything we've worked on is on that site. So you can see absolutely everything that we've agreed that we're going to measure and how we're measuring it and everything. But then you can take an anonymous quiz, and it's just answering like 18 questions, and it will then give you a measure, not to say you are sustainable or you are not, but here's what you are good at, and here's what you're not as good at. Keeping in mind those 6 key indicators, there are questions about each one of those. So it's really a great opportunity to just introduce yourself into the term sustainability and realize that they're really just best management practices on a ranch.
Thanks, Angie. Come back after the break for this week's Kansas Farm Bureau update.